Hello, everyone, and welcome to the African American Museum and Library. Okay, we are a research institution that specializes in African American history. We have a total of 4 departments that we have here. Let me see here. Okay, I'm trying to share my screen here.
So when we first opened up, I was just quite involved in the beautiful exhibition that we have upstairs, which is called Visions Toward Tomorrow, which is actually the history of Oakland beginning with the early 1900s. So once you come to AMLO, you will see touch screens, which is a part of the exhibition, audio and visuals. We continue to expand our exhibition, and as far as the tours, the murals, and things of that, well, we're going virtual, which has definitely been somewhat of a challenge. But keep in mind, being a research institution means that a lot of our work is online. Our research department, which is our archives department, we have over 200 collections in our archives. The archives department is by appointment only, and we do cut it off around 4 o'clock p.m. So once you come in, make an appointment, then we also ask that you leave personal items in a locker. And we also issue white gloves. And I'm sure a lot of you know why we issue white gloves, because once we pull the collection and you're handling the documents, you have these oils that are in your hands, and we want to make sure that we secure and make sure that the documents are handled properly. Now, our reference library has over 16,000 books, and most of them are research reference books. We do have a rare book collection, however. The oldest book is 1802, and actually, it's not a title that's written by African American. It is a book of a Navy captain, and he talks about the African American cook, which I prefer to say he is the caterer for that particular wonderful ship. I do wish that we had a picture of the ship, but we do not. So now when you move up to the gallery upstairs, once again, I'll mention Visions Toward Tomorrow. There are many screens. Everything is digitalized. We are the state-of-the-art museum. Now, I am going to stop talking, and I know that you're excited to meet our special guest. So with that in mind, I have just the person that can direct you to our special guest. Once again, Chief Curator Bamajeli Dimerson.
Okay, Marco is ready with his slide presentation. Marco is ready with the slide presentation.
Hello. Hi.
We can hear you,
Hello?
Marco. It's good.
Oh, okay. Good afternoon, and once again, welcome to the African American Museum and Library. My name is Marco Frazier, and I'm going to conduct this mini tour today. So we are located in the city of Oakland at 659 14th Street in the heart of the city of Oakland. This building here has been here since 1902. It was built with money from Andrew Carnegie, who gave $50,000 to actually build this building. 4 years later, this is the reference library, which is upstairs, which was upstairs on the second floor. 4 years later, in 1906, the great earthquake struck the Bay Area, causing widespread damage. The library, however, sustained very little damage. Some 80 years later, the building was serving as city offices when Loma Prieta struck on October 17, 1989. That earthquake actually destroyed the building and rendered it uninhabitable. After years of negotiation, the building actually was restored with over $11.5 million in funding and renovations. And in 2002, we opened as the African American Museum and Library. So now we have 4 departments that we have here. This is our seat lending library. So this is the newest department that we actually have here. So people can come in and they can get their seats, as you see, that are on the walls there. Check them out, take them home, and we encourage people to create their own gardens at home. We periodically, prior to the shutdowns, have offered many classes that actually hope to try to train people into growing their own gardens at home, both inside and outside. This is our library here. Our library is unique because, as Vita said,
Speak up.
It's a reference-only library. Can you hear me now? So we're a reference-only library, so none of our materials actually check out. But most of the materials that we have here, you can actually find, we can find for you at other libraries so that you are able to check them out. This here is our archives department. So our archives department, as Vita was saying, has over 160 collections. This section here is by appointment only. So you have to make an appointment to see the collections and things. We have digitized many of the collections and things. So as she was saying, we have close to 200 collections. In those collections, we have over 70,000 photos. So how we got our start is in 1946, a group of people came together after collecting papers and memorabilia, documenting the African-American experience in their homes. And after collecting these for many years, it outgrew their space. So they decided to come together and they opened the East Bay Negro Historical Society. And this storefront was open so that people in the community could come in and look at the papers and documents and things that they had been collecting for many, many years. Eventually, more people, interest grew, more people began to collect, and more people began to come and give their collections to these people. So eventually, we had to move from that location, and we ended up at the Golden Gate Branch Library, where we stayed for years. And after more collections and more collections began coming in, that's how we ended up at the location that we are at today. Now, as far as our collections that we have here, some of those 70,000 photos include collections from the Black Panther Party. We also have the Black Panther newspapers that we have here also. That's one of the collections that a lot of people come to research here as well. As you see here, we have the free breakfast program, the free food program, so different organizations that the Black Panther Party actually organized. Then we have Henry Delton Williams. He's a Motown designer who's designed designs such as the one you see here for the Supremes, and also for Martha Reeves of Martha Reeves and the Vandellas. So this is something that we had on display for many years in our archives department that a lot of people used to come in and admire. We also have, let's see here. Okay, there we go. So we have other collections from West Oakland entrepreneurs, including T.J. Robinson, who opened up the Gingerbread House. And the other pictures that you see here are from the Hudson collection. So Luther Hudson, who opened the Hudson Funeral Home, as well as Annette Bruce Hudson, who opened up Annette School of Charm. Next, we have Anne Maury Turner, who was the creator of the Weep House. We have the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters. So we have C.L. Dellums along with Ron Dellums. So C.L. Dellums was one of the union leaders of the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters. So the Pullman porters migrated here. That's one of the jobs that they actually came here for, to work on the trains. And then, so he was able to help to create a union, and this union was eventually recognized by the Pullman Company. Next, we have the Oakland Firefighters. So this was an African-American group. They had their own segregated units for many years. We have on the left, that's Ida Jackson, who was the first African-American school teacher to teach here in the Oakland Unified School District. And now we're going to head upstairs to our museum gallery. So this is our mural that we have upstairs. It's a 3-panel mural. It's called The Journey of Promise. And it was done by Patricia Montgomery and Daniel Galvez. So there are a total of 42 different stories up there, highlighting everything from the migration period, as you see in the middle here. This is the Richmond shipyards where African Americans came to work during World War II. Toward the bottom, we have Huey Newton, part of the Black Panther Party. Then we come up to our museum gallery here. So this is where we have our events / our exhibitions. This is our permanent exhibit, which is called Visions Towards Tomorrow. It talks about the history of African Americans in Oakland beginning with the 1890s. So as you go around the panel, you'll see different entrepreneurs, different politicians. We also have, which I didn't put on here, a cap, an insignia cap from a Pullman Porter hat, which is right in this section of this picture right here. And that was found in the 1989 rubble of the Cypress Freeway collapse. So those are some of the things that other art artifacts that we actually have here as well. These are some previous exhibitions that we have done here on the Black Panthers for the 50th anniversary and the Griots of Oakland. And finally, that will do it. So thank you for your time, and I will hand this back to Vita or Bomadelli. And once we open again, we hope to see you. We do tours on Saturdays at 4 o'clock. Hopefully, when things get better, we will be back up and running. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Marco. I am so happy we were able to present your presentation. Now, I know that everyone is looking forward to our special guest. I am so eager for you to meet them, and the person who's going to take you directly to them, once again, Chief Curator, Mr. Bomadelli Dimerson.
Thank you, Vita. Let me state that prior to COVID-19, AAMLO convened a monthly gathering of interested readers by way of its program titled Meet the Author. At these monthly gatherings, we featured the writer of a recently published book. Today's virtual session results from a collaborative effort between the staffs of Holy Names University and the African American Museum and Library at Oakland, which is a branch of the Oakland Public Library. We will meet the authors of the just published book, Changing Academia Forever. Black student leaders analyze the movement they led. And this was published in Maine by Myers Education Press. And the authors are Kitty Kelly Epstein and Bernard Stringer. Before I introduce them, let me just give you one quote in praise of the book, and this is from Danny Glover, the actor, film director, and social activist. In speaking about the book and his days as a student at San Francisco State College, he said, "Changing Academia Forever explains how we, the Black Student Union, were able to fundamentally change universities in America. We organized a strike. We worked closely with our communities. We made a coalition with students of every racial group. This is the kind of organizing we need now to save humanity and the planet. So please join me in welcoming Kitty and Bernard. Kitty Kelly Epstein is an academic, author, and host of a radio program and an urban activist. She taught students in a high school, earned a doctorate at the University of California, Berkeley, and is a professor in the School of Education at Holy Names University in Oakland, California. Dr. Epstein is the author of 2 previous books, A Different View of Urban Schools, Civil Rights, Critical Race Theory, and Unexplored Realities. And her other book is Organizing to Change a City. She has presented academic papers throughout this country and as well as workshops across the world. These include Norway, South Africa, Nicaragua, Jordan, Ethiopia, China, Poland, the Czech Republic, and elsewhere across the globe. Our other author is Bernard Stringer. He is a financial analyst, but as an activist, he is a lifelong advocate of educational empowerment as a tool for social change. He became a member of the nation's first Black student union at San Francisco State College in 1968 and participated in its movement that led to the founding of the first Black Studies Department and the School of Ethnic Studies in this country. Mr. Stringer holds a distinction as the first degree recipient in Black Studies at his alma mater. Mr. Stringer earned the master's degree in business management from Golden Gate University. His career paths have included college faculty member, youth counselor, and program manager. He has recently retired as a financial analyst for the city of Atlanta, where he lives. And these authors will be interviewed by Siri Mcdougall. He will interview the authors as well as moderate today's discussion. Siri Mcdougall III is a professor in the Department of Pan-African Studies at California State University, Los Angeles. He received his BS degree in sociology from Loras College in Dubuque, Iowa, the MA in Africana Studies from State University of New York, Albany, and the PhD in African American Studies from Temple University in Philadelphia. His research interests focus on African psychology, Afrocentric education, as well as social and political theory. Dr. Mcdougall is also co-director of the Afrometrics Research Institute. And with that, I am pleased to welcome our authors today and our moderator. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So thank you to the museum, and also I'm honored to be asked to pose some questions so that our authors can discuss the significance of their book and the strike itself. I think this is Changing Academia Forever is an outstanding book, a model for student movements that with a great insider perspective and the philosophy behind the movement and the thinking of the students who are involved and their allies. So I think just to get to what everybody is waiting for, our authors to be able to speak about the text, I want to just start with a question. Why you all decided on this project? What was behind the decision to write this book?
Bernard?
Well, basically, no one from, there have been a lot of books written, but not by anyone that was a part of the strike or anyone that was involved in the strike at San Francisco State. So I had been on a 12-year mission to get something done. And it was a long journey to get here. But there are many folks who have written about us, but there's no one among our group had published anything. So I thought it was important that we get this done one way or another. And after a 12-year journey, I was talking to Kitty. And I'd worked with Kitty at the Street Academy for 12 years or so. And she agreed that she could do this. So it got done. And it's a good piece of work. It's a good piece of work. Kitty?
Before saying more on that subject, I just want to acknowledge that there are a number of people in the audience today who were on strike, and I've written down those that I could quickly jot down. I'm sure there are others also. And at the end of our presentation, we're going to ask if people have comments that they want to make, following up on ours. But a few of the people that I saw are Judy Juanita, Terry Collins, Jerry Bernardo, Marilyn Bernardo, Sharon Jones, Roz Wolf, and Jimmy Garrett. And I believe there are other people here also, and probably as Bernard sees them or as they introduce themselves at the end, you'll get to meet them too. But the probably most phenomenal thing about the San Francisco State strike is the people who got involved in it and were willing to put themselves on the line in a really phenomenal way. And just to add a bit to what Bernard said, the kind of, it always irritated me a little bit that there's a lot of writing about these strikes that went on or these protests that went on at the various elite institutions, Yale, Columbia, so on. And nothing, not to take anything away from people in the period who were struggling for their rights and struggling to make change. But the strike that actually produced the most is the San Francisco State strike at a working class institution that has gotten little credit for its enormous significance in changing the entirety of academia in terms of the content and also who was being admitted to college. So it seemed absolutely necessary that people get a different perspective about what was significant in the student movement and who was really accomplishing things and why. So to me, everybody who was involved in the strike, I think, feels that it changed them forever, and it did change academia forever, and that kind of credit has not been given properly in the right places. So that was a very great motivating factor.
Well, I think you all fulfilled your, accomplished your objective. I think that, well, you just said it. The title is Changing Academia Forever, and which is, we talked before, the title is grand. It's a grand title. It's Changing Academia Forever. It catches the eye, and can you explain how this is meant, the title, Changing Academia Forever? Can you explain how this is not just an event that was self-contained to the Bay Area?
So there were no Black Studies departments. There were no BSUs. There was no ethnic studies being taught in schools anywhere. If the students at San Francisco State had gone on strike for 6 months and fought the police for 6 months and had a very determined approach, those changes in academia wouldn't have taken place, at least not for a while longer. So I'm generally kind of a modest person, I think. and I don't usually say, but I do think this strike was warranted that, and I guess needs to be pointed out to the world that it's kind of look at what really matters in terms of a movement needs to be refocused in some ways. Bernard?
Well, there were nothing in higher education about Black people in major white colleges throughout the country. And Black people is a part of this country and has contributed, but there was nothing educationally or in higher education about our contribution. And more importantly, there was nothing in higher education that linked the university or colleges to the Black community. And I think that that was our main focus, was linking higher education to the Black community, because the only connection to the Black community was the HBCUs. None of the so-called white universities throughout the country. So San Francisco State was very important to link the higher education to the Black community. And which was very significant in San Francisco. I can go back and think of some of the people community people, and there are folks on here that even know this much better than I do that's listening. But people like Miss Westbrook, Demetri Scott, Rip Ridley, Cecil Williams, I think he's still around. Those were folks that really helped us and promoted us in bringing a connection of the Black community to the universities. And there's some that I haven't named, but there's some of the, I can't see who's here, but a lot of the people that's here know a lot of these folks that was involved with the people that helped us bring higher education to the community. And well, I got sort of stuck here, but our main purpose was linking the community to the university. And that's what Black Studies, and that's what the experimental college started at. And that was the accomplishment by the strike and the people in the strike. Siri?
Thank you, Mr. Stringer. And I think that you all, that you read a lot about events and student movements, and a lot of times the approach taken is to address things chronologically or in through the lens of the actions of groups and organizations and institutions. But one of the things that's unique about the book that you all wrote is that you chose to look at the strike in context and through the lens of individual people's lives. You highlighted you profiled and looked at the lives of individuals. Why did you all choose to focus on the individual lives and experiences of the BSU members and strikers and allies?
Bernard?
Because those are the people who made this happen. You know, like the Jerry Venados, the Terry Collins, the Benny Stewarts, George Coberts, the Arnold Townsends, with Gloria Tyers of Shuttleworth, who was our first Black homecoming queen. Those people who were involved in it, that's who it really should be about. And we felt that was, chronologically, you can look at it, and I look at it chronologically in a way. I feel the first part of it was the visionaries. That was the visionaries. That was Jimmy Garrett and Jerry Venado and Joanne Mitchell. And those were part of the visionaries. Then you move on to the conflict, where most of us went to jail, and people fought on the campus with the help of the Mother Country Radicals, SDS, PL, Progressive Labor Party, and also the Third World Liberation Front. And the third section that I'd like to say is the implementation of the Black Studies Department. But the individuals made those things happen, each one of those sections. And I named three, the visionaries. On Friday, that was the Redwood Room, where people would go hear poetry and an African dance. Then the part for the confrontation. There's a lot of people went to jail for this. Some of the people that's in this audience now done a year or years in jail. And then the part where the implementation, which was the reward of the visionaries and the confrontation to make this happen. Kitty?
There's a couple unique things about the people who made this strike. And for whatever great reasons, and I don't know what all those reasons are, they did not buy into the cult of personality. And they operated in a way that was collaborative, and Bernard can say more about this than I can, but from what we understood from people, they acted in a way that where they centralized their decisions and they acted with discipline, and they weren't doing what a lot of people on other campuses were doing, which was to have a protest. They weren't protesting something and then getting beat up and arrested and going back to class. They were making a set of demands, which they intended to win. And so they operated in a way that was about winning, because these were things that were actually needed by the community and by the people who were leading the strike. And I think part of that is a reflection of who those people were, that to a large extent, these were not affluent students who'd gone to college and were protesting for a year or so. They were working class people who had not had the opportunity to learn any Black history and also had been oppressed and harassed for years in their lives, in their young lives. A number of people who came from the South and experienced the most horrible parts of Jim Crow segregation. People who went in the military and got out of the military, but it had a lot of exposure to harassment and violence and all kinds of evils of American society. And so I think that made them more willing to hold out and be and hang on for 6 months of terrible actions by the police. One of the people that's interviewed in the book talks about having the police say, we got 4 bullets picked out for you all. So people have to stay away from their own homes because the police were threatening to kill them. You know, people were being beat up every day. So, but part of the willingness of the individual people to hang out and be so determined had to do with the fact that they actually needed the things that were being demanded. It wasn't a protest, it was a struggle to win. And I think people decided that as the visionaries and the confrontations went on, that was people's decision. We're not going to stop until we win. And so I think the individual lives are important to understanding that. And if there's value to our movement today, it's to understand those perspectives and what it is, what it takes to be someone who's willing to be that determined. And part of the beauty of the book, I think, is the fact, for whatever way, I don't want to be too praiseworthy of her own work, but one of the things that's really good about it, I think, is the fact that Bernard knew all the people, and so he wasn't writing about somebody after they were 70 years old telling their life story, and he knew the people all the way through. So he was able to gather interviews that actually reflected what people had been through. So I think the significance is that it was a different group of people than what's usually portrayed as 60s activists. They were involved for different kinds of ways and from a different life experience, and they were more successful. The strike won, and that's why it's had so much impact on everybody who experienced it in any way. The strike won. People don't think anything can win in this society. We're going to go protest, but we know it's not going to work. This worked, and so everybody has been very much influenced by it. So I think the life stories just give life to all that. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Epstein. I want to build on what you said about the importance of individuals and what Mr. Stringer said about individuals and the importance of them. You all didn't, one of the more refreshing things about this book in comparison to many of the others I've read on the topic is that you all didn't just talk about what people did. As someone who was a student who studied Black studies, a lot of times as students or people who read about what was accomplished, you end up looking at the people who were involved in awe, you know, and for their consciousness, their ideology, and courage. But I think that what you all did with this book was you talked about how people came into their state of consciousness. You talked about how people arrived at the state of consciousness that made them ripe to be involved in the strike and the movement. And I think that for readers, something like that, the reason it's refreshing is because it humanizes the process. You know, it humanizes and makes it seem possible for them to do what you all did, because you talked about how they arrived at that way of thinking and at that state of consciousness. So I want to ask you all, why was it important to show how people came to the state of consciousness where they were open and thirsty for involvement in the strike? That seemed very intentional. I just want to know why you all decided to do that, to talk about that.
Bernard?
Mr. Stringer, your microphone is muted.
I'm new to the technology. Most of all of the Black students that was at San Francisco State was first or second generation Black people out of the South. And when you come out of the South, at that time, and there's a lot of people in the group that know what I'm talking about. Some of them say that when they came out of the South and came to San Francisco, they was coming to America. But coming out of the South makes you very serious in getting, trying to strive to improve Black life. You know, because you come out of a situation where people are just trying to get by and make it and just feed each other. I like to say that the students at San Francisco State were serious. They were serious because of the experiences that they had in the past of their parents coming out the South, them coming straight out of the South themselves. That brought a seriousness about where you were coming from, the team. First of all, you definitely want an education because my people told me there's one thing that they can't take from me. If you get an education, they can't take that from you. So people were willing to sacrifice whatever to make this happen at San Francisco State. If you can go back and look at some of the videos that, or some of the stuff the newsreel done, you can see the seriousness on the faces of the people who were striking. I mean, they were real. They were very serious.
Bernard, you hit the mute button.
You're mute, yeah.
I tell you, I'm a Neanderthal. I don't know about much of this stuff, so y'all just have to bear with me.
Neither do most of the rest of us, so.
But there were some serious people, you know, who had come out of the South. I could name folks. I know I can't see you all who is in the audience, but you know, I came out of Louisiana. Boo Ray Wilson came out of Louisiana. Jerry Venado came out of Mississippi. I mean, there was some horrible places to come from. Real horrible places to come from. And you wanted to have it better for other folks, for other Black students and other Black people. So I'll let you take it from there, Kitty. I don't want to keep talking.
I think, and I think there was a life-changing experience for white students also, because I think the approach that the Black Student Union took toward alliances was, I think, perhaps unique at the time and something that people have been able to build on since then. So I was a white student. I didn't, you know, I thought I was for civil rights, but I didn't actually understand that much when it comes to like a deep sort of understanding. But the approach of the Black Student Union was significantly perfect, I think. So the idea was that the Black students were going to lead, and if the white students wanted to add some demand like better cafeteria food, they could just go make up their own demand. That wasn't getting added in anywhere. The demands were for these significant things about open admissions and and Nathan Hare being the chair of the Black Studies Department, because he was the person who really had the intellectual depth to do that, and a number of other demands like that. And so, but on the other hand, the BSU was not saying they didn't want to have anything to do with white students, because most of the students on the campus were white. So the approach was that the African-American students were going to lead and the white students would follow. And so we learned a lot from that. And of course, there was the Third World Liberation Front also, which also developed 5 demands that were similar to the demands of the Black Student Union and joined with them. And those were significant demands for the Asian and Latino and Indigenous students also. But the white students got to learn the idea that we didn't need to lead. We didn't have the best ideas. We didn't know how to win a struggle. We hadn't had all those experiences that Bernard was talking about that would make us as tough or as insightful about what needed to be done. And that was a very powerful, important learning experience. And it stuck with me throughout being an activist for the rest of my life. That in this society, racism and capitalism are so intimately connected that it's important, if we want to win anything, that those people who have the experience of what racial capitalism does to people are going to be the people who give the best leadership. And so there wasn't like, we don't care about the white students. There was a lot of alliances. There was a lot of conversation. There was a lot of learning, but it kind of gave us all an understanding of how the society worked that was a lot deeper, and I think helped us to stay in the struggle for a longer period of time.
Reading this book, you come across, you don't really come across just a celebration of accomplishments of strikers and BSU and allies. You all, what was really interesting to me, and I think will be interesting to anyone who's ever been a student organizer, is that you all get into the meat and the potatoes of the tactics and strategies that the strikers used, which was really, really exciting to see that. Not just what was accomplished, but the tactics and strategies that we used and the thinking that went behind it. Why was it so important for you all to discuss the tactics and the strategies the BSU used?
Well, you say, why was it so important to discuss? Well, I'll say this. The BSU was well organized. You know, you look back on things, you know, that could have been some things done better, but, you know, there was a central committee. Then there was the presidium, which was like the second line, that was the second string of the leadership. And then there was the rank and file, people of the BSU. And to be a member of the BSU, all you needed to do was be Black. You know, that was the membership qualification. And the organization of the BSU, I'll say, I think about this a lot today in our Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter don't have a second string that can replace the first string, like we did at the BSU. The presidium was the second string, and the Central Committee was the first string. And the Central Committee was a very strong leadership body. When I say a strong leadership body, when you go to 8 or 10 hours, that means you have some people that's really trying to do something to bring about some progress. And I've been to a few of those meetings, but when you went to a Central Committee meeting, there was no playing around. I've seen a lot of people do push-ups because they got out of line. A lot of people do push-ups. So it was a very organized, strategically organized organization when it came to the conflict. And I think that that's what got us through. The seriousness of the police being on us, the seriousness of the matter that we had at hand, because we had the lives of all these students Not only black students, but white students, third world students, all in our hands. And we couldn't let them down, and we couldn't let ourselves down. So I won't continue on. Go on, Kitty.
I just a few factual things about the strike that people, especially younger people, might not know. So those tactics and strategies that Siri and Bernard were talking about were so effective that the strike shut down 80% of the campus for nearly 6 months, for nearly half a year. And that was a combination of the seriousness that said, you're not going to school because we're on strike. So that kind of gave some people pause to think about whether they really wanted to be crossing those picket lines where people were so serious. And it was also a matter of convincing people that the strike was right. So by the end of the strike, most of the students, I would say, agreed with the strike, although they wouldn't have in the beginning have agreed to the demands because racism affects the minds of white people in the US. And so we don't usually, think that there needs to be a department that is led by black people and black people are teaching and they're creating that wasn't something that people were thinking about. But by the time they went through the strike and the combination of the serious political education and the serious tactics of, no, you're not going to go to class because we're shut down, had an impact on everybody on the campus. And so I think that those tactics are something that the movement now needs to learn from. There is a lot of anarchic behavior in the movement. There's a lot of, I'm going to do whatever I want. It's my life. I get to be an individual. I get to do it however I want to. That doesn't win anything, in my view. I think the tactics of the strike of, we think about what should be done and then make a decision together, and then we go do that no matter what it takes, no matter whether we got to go to jail 8 or 9 times, no matter what. So I think those kind of specifics of the strike might be important to know. It's also probably important for people to know that there were something like 800 people arrested over the time of the strike, including 460 people on one day, who were all taken away at once in massive numbers of police buses, and the police had to call in the police from other communities, which got very irritating to the state that they couldn't even just use the San Francisco Police Department. They had to get a whole bunch of other police departments. And the other aspect of the tactics that I think is really important is that this reliance on the community is something which everybody who Bernard interviewed focused on a lot. That there was an actual relationship between the students and the Black community because the people lived in the community and knew the people. It wasn't like, a lot of times we have demonstrations, we're going to go organize, we need to get to know some people in the community. They didn't have to get to know anybody. They already were in the community. They knew all the people in the community. And so one of the administrators was quoted in a document that was done by, I don't know, some, not a friendly force, but some of the people who opposed the strike, where they said they went around and tried to find some Black leader in the Black community who would oppose the strike. They went and tried to find somebody who would say the strike is bad, it's too violent, the demands are wrong. They couldn't find a single person, not a single minister, not a single political leader who would say anything negative against the strike. And so that kind of power is what finally wore them down. So the tactics and strategies are important because they won. And I think people today should get familiar with them. Why, some of the reasons why they did win. The movement I think is the most similar, to my mind, locally, is this Moms for Housing, the people around the Anti-Police Terror Project and the Moms for Housing, because they have a lot of this kind of discipline and also the approach of serving the community, because the BSU was always working in the community at the same time as working on the campus. So I think there's some similarities there. Maybe some of that learning has come from the strike and other movements that came after it.
Let me say one thing else too. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I didn't know anybody Black on San Francisco State campus that did not support the strike. I don't care if they was in the fraternities, they was in the sororities, whoever they were. Everybody supported the strike. Even if they worked in the cafeteria, you can go in there and get some food and help you out, because we all struggle. We were all struggling. I didn't know nobody that was not struggling during that time. But we had the full support of people on campus, and we had the full support of the people in the community. Siri?
Yes.
Siri, I'd like to take, if we can, I'd like to take one more question, and then if people
Okay.
who were in the strike would like to write something, people are writing things in the chat, but
Yes.
if somebody wants to say something who was in the strike, if you could just write in the chat that you want to say something, and then Siri could call on other people after. So maybe one more question to us, and then give a chance to other people who were on strike to talk.
Okay. I'll do that. So if I have a last question, I think that if there are some people who were who came after the strike and who have been involved to today in Black studies, ethnic studies, PSUs, what might want to know would be for you all to speak on what do you all think, and what do the strikers think about Black studies and how it's evolved, and what it still needs to thrive in the 21st century.
Okay, I'll start that out. And I'd also like to hear from some of the folks in the audience on this particular question too. We started the Black Studies Department. The first year, every class in Black Studies had some community connection. And I think that was the same in the Third World Liberation Front and all of their particular departments. Every class had a community connection. I don't know if that's still going on totally. It started out as Black studies, then it went to African American studies or Africana studies. I can see that in an academic setting. I can definitely see that in an academic setting, because Black is a little bit hard to continue to say in an academic setting. So I can see, and I'm not going to say it's watering it down by calling it African American studies. I can understand that in academia. I can understand that. What I personally have somewhat of a concern about, the Black community today is not as it was in 1968, 69, and 70. It's the Black community is not the same. But I would still like to see Africana studies, African American studies still have some connection to the Black community, and not just to be an intellectual exercise on the college campus with no connection to the Black community. I'll leave it at that, and then after this is over with, I'm quite sure there are plenty of y'all out there can add on to that. Kitty?
There's a lot of, I mean, I don't know. I don't know about what critique to make, but there are so many issues. It does seem like the relationship between the ethnic studies and the department, you know, on homelessness, reparations, international affairs, what the U.S. is doing to the rest of the world, including the Caribbean, Haiti, Africa, all those things seem like they would be beautiful things for there to be a tighter relationship with the colleges. So do people want to write in the chat and say that you want to say something? You know, the chat's over here on the side, right? You just click on the bottom where it says chat, and then it'll open up a place and you can say, I want to say something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So if you have a question, just say that you have okay. If you have a question, just indicate in the chat that you do have a question, and then we'll call on you. And please use under a minute for your responses is what we agreed. So I think the first one I saw was Rosalind Cinnamon Johnson. Would you like to
Well, I wrote the
something?
question in chat, but the question mainly is, I think what happened was phenomenal, but shouldn't we take it to the next level and make it mandatory that Black studies, the truth, be in pre-K through 12, not have it as just an elective when you get to college. Part of the problem is not only do white folk not know who we are, but we don't know who we are because it isn't taught. It isn't something that is easily accessible. And we have to really search to be able to find that information to incorporate it into our children's education.
Mr. Stringer, did you want to speak to that, or Ms. Epstein?
Well, I heard the question, but I didn't really. Yes, I believe, yes, it should be in, it should be taken further and be in all the way from elementary to high school. Our particular job was to get, before us, only place you can get any Black history or Black understanding was at a HBCU. None of the white major universities had anything about Black folks. And yes, it should be taken further as the movements have been around the country, that we should have education about Black folks and about us. And I'll also say the third world too, but we should be able to learn about ourselves and our contributions.
To add to that, don't you think that if we did have it accessible from pre-K through high school, that it could even stop or blunt some of the racism? I mean, a lot of people think that we showed up with Martin Luther King and deplaned, we just deplaned. We didn't have anything for and of the curriculum. And you are right. I believe in the truth. I believe in everybody's contributions to this country being taught. My question is, do you think if we had a movement to do that, would it in some way help stop some of the ignorance and hate that's going on today?
You know, I'm gonna make this quick. I was with a friend of mine today and we talked about the same thing. And we couldn't come to the conclusion, and this is no dig at white folks. And it is a dig at white folks. No, I don't think it's gonna stop racism. I really don't. That's just me personally. I think it will help, but I don't know if it will stop racism. I think
That's
it
why I
might.
said blunt, because if a person hates you, they hate you no matter what. We can't do a thing about hate.
You're right. You're right. You're right.
Well,
Kenny, what do you have to do about that one?
Well, I think I think people need to be educated about each other. So I think these fights to get ethnic studies to be a course in every school is a good thing. I think it's all a good thing, but I don't think racism is not just ideas. It's material reality. And the fact is, some of the money has to be taken away from rich whites and go to other people. Otherwise, because that's, so I think all those efforts are good, and I think it does help a little bit. But I think that we really have to fight to get some of the money, the houses, all of that. And it's hard, we know half of white people in this country are pretty hard to move. So partly I think we need a lot of internationalism so that we can get together with the folks in other countries who need and want something better, and maybe in that way have an impact on what this system is like. I want to ask, so Terry, Jimmy, Jerry, Sharon, Gloria, anybody got something they want to say?
Well, Ms. Epstein, Ms. Hayes has indicated that she has a comment.
Okay.
Sorry, this is my teaching account, but it's Haley Hayes. I'm a student. I do want to say that there is a school in Oakland, Eli Almaday, that my daughter went to. Dr. Mayfield knows about this school. She's in second grade, and they do an amazing job teaching their kids African history from the start and not from roots. And she probably knows more about her history than I've ever learned in my 30 years of life. So I will start off with that. But my question is, how come we are not doing a better job with everything that we fought for to be in the state schools to fight for ethnic studies, like at Holy Names? I know for me, one of my biggest pet peeves, or it was really hard for me to come back to Holy Names for my master's, was because I felt like there's not enough. There was one ethnic studies class in my senior year at Holy Names that just started, and that's it. And that's really bothersome for me. So I just wonder, how come we don't fight for the same thing at private schools that you fought for, the several that are in this call, at the state school level?
Kitty?
I agree with you completely. It's a travesty. There is a new provost, and she was here for a few minutes, and there's the relatively new dean of the School of Education, who are fighting about this quite hard themselves. So they have now instituted some ethnic studies requirement. They're trying to change who teaches there, but it's a travesty that it's gone on this long at an institution in Oakland with as little consciousness as there's been there. I agree with you completely.
Right. I'm like, for the school to be literally in the heart of Oakland, East
Right.
Oakland, it's like, I would have loved to be an ethnic studies minor at a school that I got my undergrad and now my getting my graduate, and it's like, by the time I saw in the chat that you guys are working on an ethnic studies major, but it's like by the time that's there, I'm gonna be done with school
Right.
and off to somewhere else. And
Right.
it's like, I know I'm thinking that, great, that my future will have it, my future kids that decide to go there, if that's the case. But it's like, how long has this school been in Oakland? And it's just something that, you know, as I listen to this, it kind of breaks my heart, because it makes me happy. It makes me think, should I have supported a school that actually accepted me and my skin and what my daughter is and what, you know, my family is, whereas, you know, it's taken this long to get some type of support as a Black woman at a private school that has taken thousands of my dollars.
Yep.
But will say this, I will say, Kitty, I appreciate you, because I feel like even without ethnic studies, you have done an amazing job to bring ethnic studies into all of your classes. And so regardless of the title, and I had you for like, I think reading child books or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but for something else that had nothing to do with urban education or anything like that. And you did an amazing job still incorporating ethnic studies. So I do think that Holy Names is blessed, and it's an honor to have you as an educator at Holy Names.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. And I think that we have so many, the list is growing longer and longer. And I think,
Bernard,
let's go ahead and
this is Benny.
go to Ms.
Can we call,
That's Benny trying to come through.
Benny said he'd like to say something. Ms. Shuttlesworth, I guess, would like to say something.
Ms. Shuttlesworth has put her name in the chat. It's been for a while now. She's been waiting. So
I'm in no hurry. I'll wait my turn, and Gloria can go ahead of me or whomever. I just want to just go on the list to saying something.
Yes, and I just want to give kudos to Bernard and Kitty for coming together and getting this in writing and the book. And it's great to see everybody's face after so many years. And I agree with the young lady about the high school, getting it into the schools, because I work with people who, a group at church and white kids, and they said that they don't know anything, that they don't even do civil rights movement in their schools anymore, and that the only thing they get educated about is on the TV, and they talk about the racism within their homes. You know, it's generational. They talked about how their fathers and uncles say the N-word, and they just don't know what to do. So I think that it's very important that they continue to do Black studies and civil rights movement. Of course, see the last name Shuttlesworth? That's my father-in-law, and my daughter here is a doctor, put her head in here. And that's her granddaddy, Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth, and who's gotten his home bombed, and, you know, who finally has we talked about it when they dedicated the Birmingham airport to him, that he used to couldn't fly in it. And now it's the Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth Airport, International Airport in Birmingham. So this isn't something that needs to stop. We have to continue to fight. You know, after I left San Francisco State, I ended up being a supervisor of police chiefs, and also president of International Association of Police Community Relation Officers. And now that type of thing is gone. It's got to come back. You know, and what Bernard was saying about the second string in the Black Lives movement, Black Lives Matter movement, is so true. My son is in Pasadena, and he went to their meeting, and the young lady who was the head of it was harassed and lost her job and had to quit. And then when he went back to the meeting, there wasn't nobody there. So it's an ongoing struggle, and I'm going to shut up because I want to hear from Jerry. I want to hear from Jimmy Garrett. I want to hear from Bernard, and I want to see their faces. Love you all.
There's Delashe in the chat who indicated that they have a comment. And again, let's please keep it to under 1 minute and one comment or question.
Siri.
Thank you. My name's Delashe, she, her, ella. I'm Afro-Latina, and I just want to say thank you for putting this event on. This is just awesome. This is great. I'm the co-president of BSU at SRJC, and we had to write demands over the summer, and I've been in numerous of meetings for writing these demands. And yeah, we got some scholarships, and yeah, we're getting a ethnic Black Studies department going. But my question is, sometimes I feel like I'm the only one out there because we are less than 2% in Santa Rosa. And I feel like we don't have the support. Did you guys ever feel non-supportive and just wanted to give up? And if you did, how did you get over that? Like, because I'm at that point.
You don't want to respond to that?
No, no. We never did feel that we wanted to give up because the police was on us too hard we let Benny and Jerry and them talk. They can tell you how hard it was to think about giving up. You really did.
Siri, it is 6:26.
Okay. Okay. And so how much time do we have left?
4 minutes.
We have 4 minutes?
I'd like to let a few more of the strikers talk. You know, if people have to go, they have to go, but I'd like to hear a few more of the strikers get a chance to say something, please.
I'd like to say something.
Yeah.
Is it okay?
Yeah, yes, I guess, because I think we don't have much time left, so I think we have to adjust.
Okay. Well, I'm Sharon Jones, and I was fortunate enough to be a student at State during 1968. I was recruited as a 17-year-old from Balboa High School by Benny Stewart, Terry Collins, and Danny Glover. Today, now I was out at the strike. I was out at State during the strike. My freshman year, I was never able to go to class because we were on the picket lines. And today, I am a professor in Africana Studies at San Francisco State. And I am I cannot believe that I was able to be in the right place at the right time. And today, yes, we do. I mean, we started something back then, and we still have so far to go, you all. It's like the students, my students now, the freshmen that come in, and believe it or not, I had a student that didn't even know who Martin Luther King was. That's how much work we still have to do. I mean, we did a tremendous thing back then, but these students, they're craving to know their knowledge. They're craving to know about themselves. And I am just so thankful that I am in the place that I can teach them their history that they want to know, coming from a Black woman. And I was the youngest one out of Bernard and Crutch and Benny and Terry. I was like 17, and these were my mentors. I was able to, my whole life now is about what I learned as a freshman at State during that time. And I am so thankful that I was able to take part in the strike. I had no idea when I was recruited as one of the 400 students that was part of our demands. I had no idea what was going on at State. And once I got there, it was all over. It was so wonderful being able to be in that atmosphere, you all. And we are, I mean, the students today, they're lost. They really don't know themselves, black or white. So we still have a long way to go. We've come a long way, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. And I am so thankful that these kids now are taking, you know, we're old now. We can't get out there and strike and do all the stuff we did before, but the young people, they can do it now. And we need to give them all the support that we can, because they're out there and they want to do it. And yes, I have a granddaughter that is at AAMLO Day now. That is the only Black school here in Oakland that I know about in this area. And she is learning her history. And that's when it has to start. It has to start. We have to start this in our homes, you all. We have to start this when they're babies coming up, you know? So, and Siri, yeah. I'm so glad to see you, Siri. This was our chair at State when I came in, my first year teaching. He was the chair there. So, you know, he was the chair because of what we did back then. They didn't have any Black chairs before we got out there and did what we did. They didn't have it hardly any faculty. I mean, Jimmy Garrett, he was, you know, I'm thankful. I'm very thankful. And I haven't gotten a chance to read the book, but I hope you get it to me.
That's amazing.
Bernard, you know. Anyway,
Give me your address.
I'm sorry.
Give me your address so I can send it to you.
All right.
Thank you, Professor Jones. Bernard, I miss you all very much. Ms. Epstein, do we need to, does this mean that we need to close? I don't know.
I think we need to hear from a couple more of the strikers.
Can I just, this is Benny. Can I just say something quickly?
Yeah, let Benny talk.
Okay, let me just say that addresses what the sister said. What must I do when I get discouraged? I'm 76 years old, and I started out at the BSU at the age of 25 or something like that, you know. And I want to just say very quickly, the question is what can we pass on, do, or leave or focus on to take it to another level, the Black Studies Department. And in short, knowing and seeing after these 50 years, we started a national movement when much of our consciousness was just on a campus. It was small, but it blew up into that. I say that what needs to be added is problem solving. We need to teach people how to solve problems. And when you leave the campus, I don't care who you are, you're gonna run into problems. How do you do this? How do you do that? And I think part of what we need to add is the attitude. We got the consciousness, and the consciousness is good, and the consciousness brings about a lot of other issues, and that's life because you're dealing with people. But what we need to further arm people with is methodology, problem solving as to how do you attack these things. I started out, I think it was year before last when we went through the 48 years. Some of the students I had met that we was trying to deal with the consciousness, they had an issue of just being able to have money to eat. They're in school, but they don't have money to eat. And when you can't feed yourself or you don't have no money, that is a huge problem. You got state that's built up with high-rise housing and stuff, but it's beyond them. So we need to add, and that goes throughout the country, of teaching people, preparing them to become problem solvers. And accidentally, I found this out because I had one of my roommates that was at State, went to Harvard and got an MBA. And in talking with him, I found out how they was dealing with capitalism in business, was teaching their students with live, real problems to study the change. Not esoteric, but real problems. So they study. So when they get out of school and they go into a business world, they're kind of prepared to deal with what's coming to them because they have some methodology. And that's what we need to add. Consciousness is good, but it's not enough.
May I ask if some of the strikers would be willing to address a question that one of the audience members has? Someone is interested in knowing how you all dealt with red baiting.
With what?
Red baiting.
You should break down the meaning of that. What do you mean? How so?
So Miss, so the question is coming from, if that's your question, do you want to explain what you mean? Dasha? Dasha?
That question was messaged to me by an audience member.
I think they mean, you know, being said you're a communist, you're a revolutionary, you're trying to overthrow the government, you know, all the negative stuff about being, you know, about wanting to make change. You know, red baiting, being called a red, right? A socialist, a communist, a radical. We have a lot of people who haven't said nothing. Terry, Jimmy.
Go ahead, Terry, or somebody.
On the question of red baiting, that's the thing that Trump said today. Trump was accusing people today, the 1619 Project, critical race theory. This stuff is, as long as you struggle, Paul Robeson, W.B. Du Bois, numbers of people have been harmed by these kinds of attacks. I was in SNCC, and the way we dealt with it in SNCC in Mississippi, in the South, was there aren't any communists. There are only people who want to vote. And what we found was that the more you worked, the more deeply you got into the community, the more likely people would just pass by that. I mean, people were saying, if they're accusing people in Mississippi, if they're accusing people of being anti-American because they want to vote, then I want to be a communist too. That's not, name calling is a superficial way of dealing with the fundamental issues. And the way you come to grips with that is if you out-organize the name calling. You out-organize the superficial. I'm through with it with that.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Among the strikers, can one of the strikers speak a little more on the issue, the question that was asked earlier about the state of consciousness, how you came to the state of consciousness that you were in when you were involved in the strike? Someone is interested in hearing someone speak a little more about that.
Terry just unmuted himself, so I think Terry has to talk.
Okay, I think the technology for me is kind of, you know what I mean? Basically, we had a central committee where we sit down and use democratic centralism, where we discuss that. And for example, if one, you know, and what happened is that we discussed stuff, right? We took a vote, and everybody had to go along with that. Basically, I mean, we used, in my opinion, I was the oldest involved, right? And when I came there, I was, you know, as you probably saw in the book, I'd been out of the country for a while, you know what I mean, like 4 years. And it's like, so we just looked at the whole thing as like from an international perspective in historical dialectical materialism. I mean, talking about Marxism, I was a Marxist. I mean, I was for a long time there. But that has nothing to do. I mean, red baiting is, you know, red baiting is whatever. I mean, no matter what you do, the people in power are going to find some kind of way to demand you. So basically, we, in my opinion, what we did was together and definitely care about each other. One thing that Bernardo said very important. He said that we are not leaders. We need to develop leaders, and it was true. We have to develop leaders. And basically, to myself, I was like a tactician, but I was not a leader. So you develop leaders. That's what you do. We need to develop leaders, in my opinion.
Okay. Toy Nessa Kennedy, do you still have a comment? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to thank all of just the folks who are here, who participated. I am a 32-year-old doctoral student, and a lot of your work has inspired my work in the classroom, inspired me as a student who was a runaway in Oakland, who went to Street Academy and was educated about my history. And it awakened something in me to start to be a SHU for 7 years of my career. And that's the work that I'm doing in the community and with my students now. And I wouldn't be able to do that without the work you guys have done. And I just wanted to say thank you for your work, because it broke glass ceilings for so many of us from several generations. I'm a child of migrants who came to California in the 80s, and those seeds were seeds that I was able to eat from. So thank you.
Okay, Siri, we have about 5 minutes. This is
Okay.
Bamidele.
Well, in that case, oh, go ahead. What, does someone want to, because in that case, if we only have 5 minutes left, our authors, Ms. Epstein, Mr. Stewart, did you all want to? Did you all want to say something?
I only want to say that consciousness becomes enriched. It becomes of a higher quality when the emphasis is based upon practice. You know, you can start out, you're a Marxist, Leninist, you're a cultural naturalist, but if we're going to hang together, what's going to enrich everything is when you're doing something, when you're practicing. And that enriches the consciousness and the quality of the relationship, doing something.
Thank you. That's Mr. Stewart.
Stringer.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart.
Stringer.
That was that Mr. Stringer?
I was Benny.
No,
Yeah, I thought
Stewart. Yeah, yeah.
Stewart. Okay, I thought I knew. I remember that voice. And so our authors, I think we just have a couple of minutes left.
I want to second and third and fourth what Benny just said about consciousness comes out of doing something. That's, you know, you need to study, you need to read, you need to do all that, but you got to do it in the context of doing something. And then you do something with other wonderful people like the people who are here tonight. And then you learn from them and you learn from your activity, but just studying by itself isn't enough. I want to appreciate all the young people who are here, younger people, and what they're trying to develop in the world. And I hope that the strikers that are here will be available. I know a lot of the young people who are here might want to hear more from you in their own classrooms and all that. Bernard, sorry.
Yeah, the strikers that we haven't heard from, would you introduce yourselves? Because we only got a couple minutes left.
Crutchfield,
Right.
anything?
No, I'm talking about the ones that we haven't heard from, the strikers. Introduce yourselves.
Jimmy Garrett.
He said.
Oh, he spoke.
He spoke.
Yeah, he spoke.
Judy, Roz.
I've been writing tons of comments.
Yes, your comments, several comments in the section.
I've written lots of comments.
Roz Wolf, you were on strike. She's waving.
Hi, this is Juanita Tamayo-Lot, and I think Penny Nakatsu just left.
Oh, okay.
And Juanita also wrote a book, which I've forgotten the name of, East Wind something.
No, it's called Golden Children, a
Golden
legacy
Children.
of ethnic studies at San Francisco State. It's Golden Children because California is the Golden State. Second, because it was a golden anniversary of the strike at San Francisco State when I wrote this book. and golden because when we all come together, we are gold.
Beautiful. Thank you.
And we had a wonderful celebration, you know. I mean, look at the website of Ethnic Studies so that you understand the legacy of San Francisco State. Thank you to everybody.
Yeah, thank everybody for coming.
Yes, this is Bamidele at the African American Museum and Library at Oakland. I want to say thank you so very much, first of all, to our authors, Kitty Kelly Epstein and Bernard Stringer, for bringing us such an enlightening discussion. And I want to thank Siri McDougal for facilitating that. And I want you to please look on our website and see what activities we have coming up. This is not the only one, but this is certainly a very large event today, and I want to thank everyone for participating.
Wow.
And Dasha over here, who's still here, did a whole lot of work to make this happen. So thank you to her also.
Yeah, thank you, Dasha.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thanks
you.
very much. Thanks,
you,
Bernard.
All right.
Kitty.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night. Good night.
Good night, and thank you.
All right, Gloria.
Good night,
All right, Glory.
everyone.
Right.
All
Good
right.
night,
Connie,
Felicia.
all right.
Oakland,
Okay.
California.
Bye-bye. Great
Good night,
job.
Terry.
All right.
See you later, Bernard.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Take care, everybody.
Have a good one. Dr. Kitty, I
Good
need a
night,
bed.
Betsy.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night, Shalonda. Yeah, we got a lot of good young activists here too.
Right, I'm motivated. Between today and working with Ken and the school board panel, I'm ready.
You're ready.
I'm ready to open my school. I really appreciate you guys for sharing tonight. It was very impactful. Like you guys have me motivated. I'm an educator in Oakland. I have a nonprofit, and everything that you guys said resonated with me. So hopefully I can continue to hold the torch and make you guys proud. But thank you.
Shalonda's an amazing teacher. She just took to distance learning and said, I'm going to figure it out and make it all work. And she's been doing that. And Betsy is on the board of the Street Academy, worked at Street Academy for 40 years. Some of them with me and Bernard. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Michelle. Hi, Gay. Good night.
Bernard, I gave you my email, so get in touch so you can send me the book.
All right.
All righty, dear. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye, Sharon. Thanks for what you said.
All right, Kitty. Thank you. See you all.
All right. Take care, everybody.
All right.
All right. All right.
Again.
All right.
Good
night, everybody.
Oakland, California.
Bye, Bernard.
Over and out. Have a good evening.
All right.
I think he's gone, Chair. Yeah.
I thought that he did good.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you. Great job, everyone. It's a lot to coordinate, but good turnout. Lots of active participation. It was a wonderful discussion.
Thank you, Marco and Veda.
Okay.
Hi, Nana. Thank you, Bamadeli.
And I'll talk to you, Kitty.
All right.
All right. Take care. Good
Bye.
night.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Can I have some questions, Kitty?
Yeah, you want to email me?
Okay, the class is over, right?
Yes. It's recording still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll email you.
Okay, that'd be
All
great.
right, thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thanks a lot. Okay, bye now. Have a good night.
Good night.